It's round 11 of 21, which means one thing. Yep, the GP4OC News is back for a remarkable 7th series, and this time the pilot episode is actually using the Sky Sports News format, unlike last season where my Mac had issues. This time around, that shouldn't be the case. As we arrive here at Hockenheim ahead of the German Grand Prix, the sign-ups for the 2020 season officially closed this past Saturday. So whilst we wait till next week to find out who will be the first to be announced in this year's silly season, let's take a look at what we know already going into 2020, along with all the rumours that have dominated the headlines. So without further ado, let's get underway with Series 7. Let's start off as usual with what we know. The first thing off the back is that one of the teams is having a rebrand next season. That team of course being Toro Rosso, who will be changing their name to Alfa Tauri in order to promote Red Bull's fashion line. This means that the recognisable blue will be gone from the team and will be replaced with white and navy. The team will still keep Honda engines like the senior team Red Bull, so no change on that front. Meanwhile, Haas and Williams will be without a title sponsor next season, with Haas splitting with energy drinks company Rich Energy due to a massive fallout with CrossFit Jesus himself, Williams' story, whilst Williams will split with mobile company Rocket due to financial reasons. Next thing we know is of course the 2020 calendar. As we alluded to a few times in previous series of the GP4OC News, the 2020 season will use the calendar that the real-life Formula 1 season intended to use before the COVID-19 pandemic ruined those plans. However, there are a few tweaks from the original calendar that Yuri has had to address, those races being the Singapore Grand Prix, the Canadian Grand Prix and the Vietnamese Grand Prix. The Singapore Grand Prix, just like this season, will be replaced by the Korean Grand Prix in Hockenheim due to continuous bugs and glitches with the Marina Bay Street circuit. The Canadian Grand Prix meanwhile has been removed from the calendar due to continuous issues with the circuit. However, unlike Singapore, the Grand Prix will not be replaced, meaning that the 2020 calendar will have only 21 races as opposed to 22 races. And finally, the Vietnamese Grand Prix, which has been a question mark for some time, will not be on the 2020 calendar and will be replaced by the first ever Portuguese Grand Prix in Portimao due to the Hanoi Street circuit not being made yet for Grand Prix 4. It will host round 5 of the championship rather than round 3 in order to be a back-to-back with the Spanish Grand Prix, meaning that China and Zandvoort have been moved forward to rounds 3 and 4 respectively. The first ever Dutch Grand Prix was at one point a question mark due to the track's DAT file. However, after a few tests with the track's new DAT file, Yuri will be keeping the Grand Prix on the calendar. He still needs to do a few more tests with it, however it is more likely that the Dutch Grand Prix will happen. And of course the Brazilian Grand Prix will again be the last race rather than the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix due to a vote that was made back in 2009 to make Interlagos always the finale. However, it will be the last time that Interlagos will have the right to always be the finale due to the next thing that we know about, and that is that the 2020 season will be the last season to use car performances based on real life. The 2021 season will be the first season to use fantasy car performances, or as everybody has been dubbing it, the fantasy era, meaning that the series will no longer be basing their car performances and even their calendar on the real life F1 season. Interlagos, as mentioned earlier, will no longer be having the right to always be the last GP from 2021 onwards. However, that doesn't mean that it will never be the finale from the 2021 season. It means that the series is more open to having other races being the finale than just Interlagos. The fantasy era coming in 2021 means that the 2020 season will be the final season for Manor, who unlike in real life will have a proper send-off from the OC rather than what happened in real life where the team went bankrupt and ended up folding. They have done this by running a special livery for the season, which has the messages "Thank you for the memories" on the side pods and "One last hurrah" on the back of the rear wing. Manor will be hoping to end their final season in 2020 with a bang. And the final thing that we know about involves one of the 2019 top class drivers. That driver in particular being Matteo Catalan, who will not be competing in the top class in 2020 as a result of him forgetting to sign up in time. Matteo, if you've seen the OC Discord, has recently been memeing himself about him forgetting the sign-ups. At least he was able to see the funny side of it. Hopefully we will see Matteo again in the top class in the future, however for now at least he will not be on the top class grid in 2020. So they are all the things that we know about going into the 2020 season. So with those out of the way, let us have a look at the pick order and the rumours that have dominated the paddock. We will start off with the pick order, which is on your screen right now. For anyone who needs a reminder, the pick order is based on the number of number 1 picks each team received, with those being tied on the same amount being based on the number of overall picks. Manor have the most number 1 picks with 10, followed by Williams and Alfa Tauri who both have 9, with Williams being ahead due to them having more overall picks. Haas and Alfa Romeo are tied on 7, with Haas being ahead on overall picks, with Renault in 6th place on 6. Racing Point, McLaren and Ferrari are tied on 4, with Racing Point being ahead on overall picks, with McLaren being ahead of Ferrari on overall picks. Red Bull are 10th with 3, and Mercedes are last with 2. This pick order is of course crucial because it can determine if people's number 2, number 3 and number 4 picks are eligible for them to get. Now with that out of the way, let's look at all of the rumours. Starting off with the top 3 teams, Mercedes, Ferrari and Red Bull. Mercedes are more likely to retain their current lineup of Franco Lopez and Amar Khan to the shock of pretty much no one. However, it's Red Bull and Ferrari which could get interesting. Red Bull are more likely to retain Miklos Gal for an unbelievable 9th successive season. However, Franco Gamba is still a bit of a question mark given the Italian's shaky season despite taking a win at Australia. If Franco doesn't get retained or even get to see in 2020, then Franco himself has said that he could possibly retire from the OC. However, whether he will or not is another question. So if Franco gets dropped from Red Bull, then who will replace him? Well, the man who missed out on a Red Bull seat for this season, Jay McKenzie, who as everybody knows by now is currently frustrated with his current team Renault, and it looks more likely that he will leave the team at the end of the season regardless of whether he gets the Red Bull drive or not. If Franco however gets retained, then it is more likely that the 2-time world champion would be out of a drive in 2020. However, only time will tell what will happen with the Austrian energy drinks company. Ferrari on the other hand is even more interesting, because while it is highly likely that Laura Chung will remain with the team for another season, it's her potential teammate that could be a question mark. Before the silly season began, a lot of people thought that Joseph Willows would remain with the team for a 10th successive season. However, to the shock of everyone during the sign-ups, it seems highly likely that the 2-time world champion's time at the Prancing Horse may be coming to an end, with rumours about him joining another team. More on that later. If Joseph ends up leaving the team, who would replace him? Well, there are a long list of candidates who could replace him, which include current Toro Rosso driver David Kupak if he doesn't get retained at Alfa Tauri, former McLaren driver Roberto Gamba if he misses out on an Alfa Tauri drive as well, and 4-time race winner Robert Ionescu, who is eager to get back in the top class and could do that with his dream team Ferrari. It will be very interesting to see what will happen with the Prancing Horse in 2020. Moving on to the midfield, which consists of McLaren, Toro Rosso, soon to be AlphaTauri, Racing Point, Alfa Romeo and Renault. McLaren is more likely to retain Kirishima De Rosa for a 3rd successive season as a result of the Polish driver making a huge improvement this season. However, his teammate Paolino Tomaselli, who is having another great season and whilst could stay at McLaren, is highly likely to leave the Woking-based team due to him only putting them down as his number 2 choice. More on the team that he's put as his number 1 choice later. So if Paolino ends up leaving McLaren, who will replace him? Well, the man who could replace him may be a shock to some people. The man I'm talking about is Joseph Willows. Yep, you are not hearing things. It seems highly likely that the 2-time world champion could be returning to the team that he spent the first 5 years of his top class career with and the team that gave him his 2 world titles. This rumour could make Kirishima De Rosa a little bit uneasy because if Paolino ends up getting retained at McLaren and thus misses out on his number 1 choice, then Kiro could find himself out of a drive. However, only time will tell. Moving on to AlphaTauri, and given the news about Matteo Catalan, we now know that there will be at least 1 driver change at the team next season. David Kupak has a chance of being retained, however there are other candidates that could nab the seat off of him. These drivers include current Red Bull test driver and GP2 Championship contender Rahul Patel, current Haas driver Chris Chatfield, and current DTM Championship contender Roberto Gamba. If David misses out on getting retained, then as mentioned earlier, he does have a chance of being at Ferrari. Same goes with Roberto Gamba if he misses out on AlphaTauri. What makes it interesting for the pair of them is that the pair at one point put Ferrari as their number 1 choice. However, at the last minute, they changed their number 1 choice to AlphaTauri. It will be interesting to see what will happen with these two, along with the other contenders for AlphaTauri. Moving on to Racing Point, and it seems highly likely that they will retain their lineup of Roland Motrin and George Roque for another season. At one point though during the sign-ups, there was a chance that one of them could have been dropped for next season in favour of Paolino Tomaselli, who originally put the pink Mercedes down as his number 1 choice. However, towards the back end of the sign-ups, he changed his number 1 choice, meaning it is now likely that the Silverstone-based team will retain their current lineup. We might as well bring up, whilst we are on Racing Point, Tolavi Nalterinon, who is the current test driver. Whilst he has put RP as his number 1 choice, it seems highly unlikely that Teravi will return, and he has also announced that no matter where he is next season, the 2020 season will be his last in the OC as a whole. Whatever he ends up doing in 2020, we hope it's a brilliant last season for him, and once the 2020 season is over, we will wish Tauri all the very best in the future. Moving on to Alfa Romeo, and it seems highly likely that Andre Verderi will remain with the team for another season. However, he may end up with another teammate for next season as a result of Gabriel Gomez putting AlphaTauri down as his number one choice, and also because of the fact that the Brazilian is having a tricky season in 2019, which may also see him miss out on an AlphaTauri drive as well. If he misses out on both of these seats, who could replace him? Well, according to the rumours, it is highly likely that the team's current test driver and current GP2 driver, Aaron Curtis, could end up replacing Gabriel at Alfa Romeo if his results don't start picking up or if he ends up at AlphaTauri. Julius Anderson and Romain Quart could also stake their claim at an Alpha seat if their results start picking up in DTM. On to Renault, and Evan Byrne does have a chance of being retained there next season. However, if his results start deteriorating, then he may be booted out in favour of someone else, with the likes of DTM Championship contender Adam Wolff and BTCC Championship leader Jesus Perinen having a chance of grabbing the seat if Evan drops his form. In terms of Jay McKenzie, as we alluded to earlier, he is more likely to lead the team after a frustrating 2019 season, with him fighting for a Red Bull seat. So if Jay ends up leaving the team, who could replace him? Well, step in Paolino Tomaselli, as the Italian has put the French manufacturer down as his number one choice. As mentioned earlier, he did originally put Racing Point down as his number one choice, however towards the back end of the sign-ups, he changed it to Renault. Given that the Italian is having another great season, it is highly likely that he will end up at Renault next season, however only time will tell. Finally, onto the current backmarker teams, Haas, Williams and Manor. Haas is more likely to retain Jared Fosbury for next season, however his current teammate Chris Chatfield is another question. Chris could still be at Haas next season if he misses out on an AlphaTauri drive. If Chris ends up going there, then there is a chance that current GP2 Championship leader Dudu Kirby and GP2 Championship contender Max Gillen could have a stake at that second Haas seat. Meanwhile at Williams, they are more likely to retain Felix Sonntag for another season, however it is highly likely that he will have a new teammate next year as a result of Lincoln Parner having a tricky season and the fact that the American has put Racing Point down as his number one choice. Given that RP is highly likely to retain their current lineup, it is highly likely that Lean could be out of a drive in 2020, however only time will tell. In terms of who could replace him at Williams, the contenders range from GP2 Championship contender Jamie Griffiths to current DTM Championship leader Daniel Fraser. Lorenzo Tomaselli and Michael Mocho could also stake their claim at the seat if they step up their results. Same goes with Kiwi Joel Watterson. Finally, at Manor, there is a good chance that they could keep their current lineup of Maxim Titkov and Rosetta Martinez in the team's final season. However, there is also a chance that one of them could be dropped in favour of current Formula E Championship contender Amelia Wilson, as there is a chance that the American could end up doing a Matteo Catalan and end up on the top class grid next season. Only time will tell what will happen in Manor ahead of their final season in 2020. And they are all the rumours that have dominated the paddock. And with that, that concludes the pilot episode of the GP4OC News Series 7. The first team news of the season will break at the Hungarian Grand Prix next week. Who will be the first to be announced? Tune into practice next Tuesday.